The road to a violence-free 2023, I mean the general elections in 2023 is still very much alive, and we are very, very privileged to be part of the entire exercise. On that note, I welcome you to our program, Violence-Free World. My name is Callivision, and my guest on the show today is a regular analyst that we've had here, a very senior lawyer, Barrister Sam Kargbo. Sam, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations in advance onto something. We'll talk about that later.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, we're going to come back and continue with the conversation, but right after this. Since independence, elections in Nigeria have been associated with volatility. This perception stems from the incidents of violence experienced during and after elections. The 1964 elections recorded violence in unprecedented proportions, resulting in widespread arson, looting, and killing. Similarly, in 1979, though with a lesser intensity, violence broke out at various locations across Nigeria in protest of the election results that announced Alhaji Shehu Shagari as winner over Chief Obafemi Awolowo. The casualty figure was minimal but will be magnified for the 1983 elections, when Shehu Shagari again won re-election. A significant dimension to that election was what played out at the state level, particularly in Ondo State, when Chief Akin Omoboriwu was initially pronounced victorious over incumbent Governor Adekunle Ajasin, a decision that was later reversed by the courts. His supporters literally ignited the state while protesting the outcome of the election. 1993 was the next major election moment, and in a much more defiant and sustained manner, angry Nigerians protested the annulment of the election of Chief Moshood Abiola in the June 12 presidential election by the General Ibrahim Babangida-led military administration. The resulting political tension took over a decade to settle. Political analysts and pundits had from this legion of sad events begun to build predictions with a near sense of certainty that Nigeria's disintegration will happen in the not-too-distant future. The casualty figure that came with the 2011 elections led people in several quarters to assume a looming catastrophe could happen with the 2015 general elections. The D-Day finally came, replete with the usual drama of ballot box snatching, rhetoric of fury, and climaxed with the unlikely concession of victory by the incumbent President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan to opposition candidate Muhammadu Buhari. Interestingly, all of the palpable tension melted into wide jubilation and excitement. Many patriots have struggled with accepting this trend as part of our culture and would rather consider it an exception, hence the flurry of programs to change the orientation of the citizenry. Laws have been made to specifically deal with election-related violence and other forms of malpractices that promote violence. It seems, however, though, that the local political offices hold far overwhelm any sense of reason. Perhaps a deliberate attempt to make political offices less attractive may serve to reduce the incidence of violence during elections. Schools at our level, religious organizations, and the National Orientation Agency would need to redouble their efforts at getting the citizenry to appreciate that all elections can be credible and indeed violence-free. Welcome back. Well, Sam, let's go straight to the conversation now. There is a terror alert, and that seems to be like one of the latest things going on right now. Not like this is particularly new, but the US has sneezed, so everyone is catching cold. Are they telling us anything very new? Schools are shutting down. It is not the federal government giving this terror alert this time. It is the United States, particularly directing it to their officials, and yet the Nigerians are complying much more than even the Americans themselves. What is going on?
Well, let me look at it from this angle. Almost all of us, I think, we've been so terrorized, let me use that word, by insecurity that any news from anywhere, irrespective of where it's coming from, would escalate our fears. That's why I think people are getting so panicky and worried, especially when it's coming from the United States Embassy. People have the feeling that, they are superior to us, and that their intelligence gathering is better than that which we have. I don't believe so. I do not think that our security agents are anyway inferior, or that they are doing anything over and above what our security agents are doing.
Is it not even likely that our intelligence agency must have even shared this intelligence with them? Maybe say the DSS and that
possible,
kind of stuff, and then they escalated it?
It's possible because, they share information. It's imperative that they do. And I would also think that they have back their channels through which they actually share and compare this intelligence that they get from all sources, But definitely, I think our security agents have a wider reach and a much more, what would I say, a firmer grip of the intelligence network for them to have a much more reliable information. But in any case, irrespective of whether or not it's coming from the US or in any other source, I think the cliche is to be forewarned is to be forearmed. There is nothing wrong in us getting prepared and being careful. But I do not think that being careful should go to the extent of shutting down schools. If for anything, we should, in any case, fortify those schools with the right security.
What does this do to our election?
The election is a little bit far away. We have 4 months to the elections. There's still a lot to be done. Of course, the election is going to come with its own peculiarities. We know that for every cycle of election, we'll discuss this over and over. There is always the tendency for people to actually want to muzzle their way with some form of thuggery and instigating some form of violence in order to edge others out of the field and get a wider space. That could come with its own, but for now, what I think the government should do is to assure Nigerians that yes, our partners, I would call them partners, that is the American embassy and their personnel, they warn us that the insurgents are working on the possibility of making those attacks, and we should also use that information, that warning, to be careful.
Okay, as a countermeasure, necessary countermeasures everywhere, self-defense as a measure has been mentioned a lot of times. Coming from no other important person than retired General T.Y. Danjuma. This is not the first time he's saying this, that people should arm themselves, should be allowed to arm themselves just so they can defend themselves from the marauding Fulanis. That there's an agenda that is being probably or very likely protected by the federal government. He has said so on several fora, and he has continued to say so. Again, T.Y. Danjuma recently was in the news, and the video is everywhere, where he's saying he does not trust the armed forces, more or less like saying he doesn't trust the federal government. People should be allowed to carry arms to defend themselves. Ultimately, people will have to. How do we halt this degeneration?
Let us address Danjuma and his own inflammatory statements first. Danjuma has always been who he is. He comes in and out with those sort of unguarded statements, with due respect to him. And he should be a statesman. Nigeria has paid him a lot. He's enjoyed the largest of the unity of this country more than very many of us. He's rich not because of any ingenuity. He's rich because what? He has oil wells. And I do not think he got those oil wells out of anything other than having been in government and having fostered himself in government, either through coups or through his employment as a government official. So when he comes in and out with those sort of statements, people like us will just ignore him, because I think we help those sort of people a lot when we give them attention. They are attention seekers. You see, of course, insecurity is here with us. Everybody knows that the country is insecure, yes. We've been fighting with it. It's been with us since about 2012 or thereafter, up to this moment, 10 years down the line. Each government has put in its own effort, and it has had its own level of successes and failures. You know, but when you come out to characterize it as a Fulani marauding thing, you more or less trivialize the issue and give it a tribal slant. And it is that in itself that I would say is distracting, because I've had to actually put in a lot on this particular issue. I've written on the Fulani invasion, and I've given my own perspective to it, that yes, you could call it that, but it's not an issue of Fulanis. That the insecurity we are having and the bandage we are having is caused by Fulanis. It's just that it's a name given to all sorts of characters who have gone into that business and who have been profiting from it. And so for him to come and sell that very particular appellation and make it like all that we have is a problem with the Fulanis. I would say in one word, unfortunate.
That leads us to our next question, Sam. That's like ethnic profiling, what you're just hinting at, ethnic framing and all that kind of stuff. Now, our next question is being dangerous rhetoric of fury, where people are exchanging words in an unpleasant way. Recently, you're aware of Festus Keyamo trading words with Dele Momodu and all that stuff, Atiku, Otom, and part of the peace agreement speaks to the issue of people controlling the words that they say against each other or to each other, just so they do not heat up the polity. Yet this is going on. Is it like the kind of thing that we most experience when it comes to politics?
Unfortunately, it's not something you rule out of politics. It's to me, it comes with politics of campaigns. You know, all is fair in campaigns. That's the word. But my warning and my worry and concern is about the word ethnic profiling. And ethnicity is a very sensitive issue in Nigeria. Ethnicity, religion, and religion. They are the most sensitive topics and issues in our polity. So I would always want and advise any adult, not just a politician, to refrain from going that route, wanting to make a cheap score with ethnic, what I would call religious statements, because in this part of the world, those things are still very dear to the minds of people. To me, they are not relevant. If you tell me that my religion is stupid, I say thank you. If you say my tribe is this, I say thank you, because what? It will not hurt me. I will not take away anything from me. But to the generality of the people, they can what? Break limbs for those sort of statements. And unfortunately, during elections, people want and will always want to be seen to be on the side of the people. And they know what the people want to hear, and that's what they go to down with. Believe me, these are people we know. We know who they are. They are rich, not, like I said, not because they are much more hardworking or ingenious, or they have anything that you can refer to as something they put in extra. They are rich because what? They are just beneficiary of the state largest by virtue of position they've held. And they've not used their wealth in any way to promote the unity or the development of the country or help people. But during election, they come and jump on rostrums, giving the impression that, oh, but for them, this country would have been in tatters, and that they are better characters than the politicians.
On the minds of Nigerians presently, it's a solution. What could possibly be the solutions? People are talking about ransom, talking about mercenaries, talking about clamor for a new order completely. These are some of the things we're going to come back and talk to when we return from the break. This is Violence Free World. We'll be right back after this time out. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is Violence Free World, and Barrister Sam Kargbo is still very much with me here. Sam, now, before we went on the break, we were hinting at solutions. Some persons have mentioned this issue of mercenaries, citing that President Goodluck Jonathan, in his days, when we approached elections, had actually deployed mercenaries, hired mercenaries from somewhere, and they came, and before, in no time, the issue of insecurity was drastically checked. Some other persons have told me that the way it is going now, we're like putting money in a bottomless pit, when we know very well that mercenaries can do this job once and for all. To you, does it look like mercenaries are the solution?
No. Let me start with where I'm going to end, as no. Yeah, there has been that talk, and there are instances where you have mercenaries doing the job. I remember and I recall that mercenaries were used in the war in Sierra Leone. I also know that the Ukrainians and other places are using mercenaries. I also know that, yeah, there are a bulk of individuals out there who are waiting to be hired and who have the experience for this sort of insurgencies and terrorist activities. But there is always the other side to it. The economy of it would always more or less give the incentive for perpetuation of the crisis itself or the insecurity itself, because they don't come in cheap, and it's a job, and when you hire them, of course, they come in very pricey, and if they were idle out there, you bring them in. Like I said, there is always the incentive for them to always orchestrate a sense of insecurity for you to keep them in. So that
create a market for themselves.
Yeah, because let's take a look at what the Americans did in Afghanistan. They've been there for long. What did they do? The moment they left, place collapsed. You know, so why expose ourselves to it? And that's why others are saying, if why not put the money that you want to give to the mercenaries in beefing up the security armament within. Mind you, our security agents are trying their best within the limited facilities that they have. If you look at the average, let me use this word loosely now, America or Western soldier in the field, you see how well kitted is compared to the ones we see here. There is what? A gulf of difference. And the reason is what? The level of what? Funding. If actually people are saying that we are putting the money and we don't see results, I do not think so. Security does not come in cheap. A bullet does not come in cheap. And if you deploy a battalion into the field, the average daily cost is huge. And so sometimes people tend to assess outcome from their own imagination as to what the security should be. But you are talking about pushing back elements from a very wide range of land. Take a look at you having to police the entire north, for an example. Policing the entire boundaries of Nigeria, because many of these insurgents, we can't hide away from it. They are hired mercenary too by warmongers. There are people who are coming from without. They are trained also to come and do the job. And sometimes many of them, they break away from their own hirers to form their own gangs, and that's how these things mutate, and that's how it spreads. Sometimes you have one person bringing them to come and do a specific job. When they finish, they realize that, oh, this is a lucrative job, and the risk is less than they had thought. It gives them the incentive and the impetus for them to also create their own force and become their own lords.
And all of this boils down to political will to do all of this. But going forward, this issue of ransom implicates both those who pay and those who take. And when you pay, you get instant relief that your person is released. And again, when you pay, those you pay use the money and go around
to buy arms and
then come back, and possibly there are instances where a particular person has been kidnapped twice.
Yeah.
So it's like a vicious cycle that keeps going around. But some persons will still argue that at least it provides a temporary relief and life goes on. Life goes with hope. And that's how the stuff. I don't know what you...
You see, the ransom racket has a very big economy. And unfortunately, you can't get ransom across from my own, what would I call it now, research, without the involvement of security agents and tribal heads. Because, let's put it this way, somebody is kidnapped, he's going to be kept in a location, and somebody is going to be sent out to interface with the relation of the kidnapped person, and they're going to use telephone and some other means of communication to reach those people, and the relations of friends and associates of the kidnapped person are going to what? Pass across this fund with the knowledge of the police most of the time. They can't go in there blindly because there is also what the risk of they themselves being kidnapped and all of that. And for this culture of what? Kidnapping and receiving ransom and releasing the victims, for it to go on, it has to have what? A layer of assurances, a layer of what? Confidences, a layer of what? Activities, and a layer of what? Personnel to do that. And I do not see that working seamlessly and continuously without what? The notice and attention of the security personnel.
So as we close, one word of hope, especially to the young people.
Let them hold the people in their domain accountable. Let them start with that. This is the formula. Next door to you, there is a counselor. Make life impossible for him. If you make life impossible for him, he would also make life impossible for the local council chairman. When the local council chairman cannot go to his own village, he would tell the governor to say, sir, except if you don't want me to do the job, I wouldn't do what you want me to do. Give me money, my money to go and do development. When all of these pressures are made and we start having money being put for what they are meant to be put into by the government at the state level, we start having succor.
Well, that's talking about legacy, and Barrister Sam Kargbo, I think that's a very good point to leave it. At this point, I'd like to thank you very much for obliging me.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I've been speaking with Barrister Sam Kargbo, a very senior legal practitioner, a public affairs analyst, a music icon, a music promoter. In fact, he's an all-rounder. Same time next week promises more if you endeavor to be here. Until then, please remember to remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. Thank you for watching.